Well, today it looks pretty much just like rolling prairie. A few bluffs of trees here and there. Not much exceptional. Coyotes crying in the distance. But this is a place. This is Camp Hughes. Once was called Sewell Camp, but in 1915 they changed it to name it after Canadians' Minister of Militia and Defense, and his name was Hughes, Sam Hughes. What happened here was the great maw of death that World War I required. Some of the men who fed that maw were trained here, one of the many places around the world where men learn to kill and be killed. And these indentations in the ground that you see were where soldiers trained for World War I. About 38,000 men went through this place. Cannon fodder to feed the first big war. It was the second biggest city in Manitoba in 1915. And today it's a heritage area, and all that's left are some of the indentations in the ground where the trenches were, where the men trained. Not too far away in that direction there's a railroad track that runs by, which brought the men for training and then took them off to war. Little cemetery attached to it as well, on the side of the hill up there. And here's the entrance to the little cemetery at Camp Hughes. Lovely location on the side of a hill. Beautiful spruce trees. The prairie has its dun colors of late fall, waiting for the snow. It's a small cemetery. Let's go inside. There's probably maybe 3 dozen graves in this cemetery. It's not a big cemetery. Graves are spread far apart. A few military men buried here over in this corner from 1916 was when they died. And there seems to be a couple of local families and several unknown graves. In fact, I would say probably maybe a dozen even. And the graves of children. So many graves of children from 2 days old to a few months old. All the remains of the trenches where the men trained, the artillery, cavalry, the infantry. All the remains of their trenches are a few shallow indentations in the prairie soil. And the amazing feeling of fear and patriotism, that lust for war, that huge testosterone sink that needed to be drained, it's all here. The prairie wind blowing across it today, but it's all here. This is a sad place. This is a mad place. A place where the insanity of war was instilled into minds and bodies and souls. And that madness is still here too, somehow. Somehow. I'm quite emotionally involved with this place at this moment. I've spent some time here today and walked around, followed the trails, and I'm rather surprised that it's this palpable, that the energy of the place survives so long. And yet that's what I've been feeling here for the last 45 minutes. In its time, Camp Hughes had stores and little saloons and so on, all down one street. All of that after the war was abandoned and then finally dismantled during the 1930s as a make-work project during the Depression. And all that remains today. The wind through the prairie grass and the sunshine.